Hi, my name is Amanda Wolford. This lesson is for Social Studies, 4th grade. It is meeting basic needs of Native Americans and early settlers. The prerequisite and prior knowledge is students will have an understanding what basic needs are, such as food, water, and shelter. The standard and objectives is Idaho State Standard 4SS31. Describe and analyze how American Indians and early settlers met their basic needs of food, water, and shelter. For the learning objectives, it will be by the end of the lesson, students will be able to describe how American Indians and early settlers met their basic needs. Students will compare similarities and differences using information from informational text. And then students will write an explanatory paragraph using evidence from the text and academic language. For vocabulary, we have basic needs, resources, shelter, American Indians, environment, and natural resources. There will be a formative and summative assessment. For formative, students will fill out a graphic organizer. Actually, there's multiple graphic organizers. Students will verbally share and discuss what they learned as a class, and then students will design a Google slide to share with the class. And then for summative, students will write an explanatory paragraph using evidence from the text and academic language. Materials, short informational text and videos about American Indians and early settlers. Vocabulary cards with images, graphic organizer, and Google Slides. And then that's technologies in there as well. All right. Okay, for this lesson, I would start with a informational YouTube video on the early Native Americans that lived in North America, along with the early settlers. And after the YouTube video, I will go over the vocabulary words and have images, and then the vocabulary will have easy to understand definitions. And I will start with that.
South America, including Alaska and Hawaii. There were different tribes and cultures who lived in different parts of the country. A tribe usually consisted of families or communities that spoke the same language and had common beliefs. They also shared the same customs or traditions, designed their homes according to the weather and area where they lived. A teepee was built using long poles for the frame or structure. The poles were tied together in a bundle at the top and put back up again, making it the perfect house for people who moved a lot. A wigwam was about 8 to 10 feet tall. Like the teepee, it was also made from wooden frames. These frames were covered with sheets of bark from a birch tree near the side of a cliff, which is why it was also called a cliff dwelling. These homes were built of bricks made from clay. Igloo and chickee.
Why do you think some tribes had igloos or teepees or wigwams or longhouses? Why do you think they all had different houses and shelters? Right, because of the environment they lived in. Yep, like they might have an igloo if it's cold. Or, right, because of what they ate. If they were following buffalo, they'd need to be able to move their home. That's why you're right. That's why they had different shelters. Very good.
Caribou for food, as well as deer and rabbits. Fishing was widely used to provide food for villages that were close to rivers or streams. Spears, nets, and fish traps were made to catch the fish. In cold regions like Alaska, ice fishing was common. A small hole was cut into the ice and long spears were used to catch the fish. Farming was important to many of the tribes, especially in warmer climates. Main crops included corn, beans, and squash.
Why do you think that the tribes had different diets? Right, because it depended on the region they lived in, the environment, the weather. Right, so some of them that lived by the water were able to get seafood, or lakes, they could get fish and crabs. Yeah, exactly. Or if they weren't by the water, then they would follow animal herds. Or if they didn't do that, they were farmers, depending on if they had good soil and good weather. Very good.
Native Americans were also different from tribe to tribe. If an area where Native Americans lived was warm like Arizona, Then less clothing was worn because of the heat. Like Alaska, clothing was layered for warmth. A common material for clothing was animal skins.
What do you think the main factor is as to why each tribe was so different? Yeah, exactly. It depended on the region that they lived in. Exactly, the environment, the climate. Yeah, that is why each tribe is so different depending on the area that they lived. Now that we've gone over our vocabulary words and we've watched our YouTube videos, we are going to do some reading together, and I'm going to read the first section for you guys and show you what we're doing. This is your graphic organizer that I will have printed out for everybody. And then along the top, you are going to put the name of the tribe, and then you're going to fill out the region they lived, their climate, their shelter, their clothing, and what they ate. I'm going to do the first couple for you to give you an example of how to fill this out. Our informational text we're going to be reading together. It's called Native American Cultures on History.com. It lists the 10 different areas in North America where the Native Americans lived. I'm going to read the first one with you. The Arctic. The Arctic culture area is a cold, flat, treeless region, actually a frozen desert near the Arctic Circle in present-day Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. It was home to the Inuit and Aleut people. Because it was such an inhospitable landscape, the Arctic's population was small and scattered. Some of its people, especially the Inuit in the northern part of the region, were nomads, following seals, polar bears, and other game as they migrated across the tundra. What does nomads mean? Nomadic? Exactly, they move with their food source. In the southern part of the region, the Aleut were a bit more settled, living in small fishing villages along the shore. These people had a great deal in common. Many lived in dome-shaped homes made out of sod or timber. In the north, they lived in igloos made from ice blocks. They used seal and otter skins to make warm, weatherproof clothing, aerodynamic dog sleds, and long open fishing boats called kayaks. For each section, you're going to fill out your graphic organizer. I've filled out a couple of them for you. The first one we'll do is the Inuit together. So the region is the Arctic. The climate is the harsh cold. Shelter is igloos in the winter, animal skin tents in the summer. Clothing, warm animal fur clothing. And then for the food, they were nomadic. They hunted marine mammals, caribous. They fished, and they used dog sleds and kayaks. All right, we are going to continue filling out the graphic organizer using the informational text. You can do it independently, or you can pair up with a buddy. And if you have any questions, I'll be walking around the room to help you fill this out. Now, what I would like you to do is look at your graphic organizer and choose a tribe that you'd like to learn more about. Then you can individually or with your partner make a Google slide telling us about this tribe. Include the region, the climate. In your slide, include the region, climate, shelter, clothing, and food. When everyone's done, we are going to share the slides together as a class. Here's our slides. And then I would just have the students present their slides on the different tribes and the different areas that they lived in. For sharing your slides, everyone was very knowledgeable and did a great job. Now we are going to move on to our writing activity. You are going to take your graphic organizer and choose 2 tribes to compare. I have done that as an example here. I chose the Ute and the Inuit, and you are going to write a prompt on that. So choose 2 American Indian tribes to compare. Use evidence from your text to support your writing. And for an example, the blank met their basic needs by blank. Another group, that was my lesson. Depending on how long it takes them to fill in their graphic organizers, to make their slide, and to do their writing prompt, it could be most likely a 2-day lesson. But I just wanted to share my high leverage practices to support all learners. For gifted and talented learners, the students can do an additional research for another tribe and create a comparison showing similarities and differences. For English learners, I would do teacher will provide support such as visual aids, sentence stems, and vocabulary preview. They will also have opportunities for partner reading and sharing. And then for students with other exceptionalities, teachers will give students structured graphic organizers. The teacher will model and check for understanding. Students will have options to share. And here are my sources. Thank you so much for listening.